Coming.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Lighting the Torch. My name is Candice Miles. I am the founder and CEO of No Gap Consulting, which you can see right here, where I am a leadership coach for first time leaders, for Black women that are stepping into leadership for the very first time, helping them embrace their unique identity as they step into leadership for the very first time. But not only that, not only am I that, I am also representing the millennials. So, like I like to do all the time with the good emoji. If you are in the millennial generation, go ahead and put that peace sign emoji because we all know we like to do this. Don't even forget that because we all do that with that peace sign. So go ahead and drop that into the chat. But I'm not here by myself. As you can see, lovely co-host Cynthia, I pass it over to you.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Cynthia Haley. I go by Tip Energy Coach. You can find me on social media under that handle, of course. And I actually am a career coach where I not only specialize in elevating careers, but I also specialize in elevating your energy. And so I'm excited to be here with my co host, Candice, as she's representing the millennials and I am representing Gen X. And we also have something else that we represent. I represent the East Coast. She represents the West Coast. Right? I don't have a fancy little emoji or anything like that to represent. I just lost my co-host actually. Hopefully she'll be back on in just a second. Bear with me, technical difficulties, but we are still moving here. And there she is. She has returned.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, Candice, you want to jump in and let folks know why we're here?
Yes. So if this is your first time joining us, one, welcome. Lighting the torch, what it is that we decided that it is time for us to actually light each other's torch from generation to generation where we're passing along wisdom, whether you are in Gen X or you are in millennials, and even to Gen Z or boomers. We welcome all generations. But basically, what we are doing is we are taking the knowledge that we have both collectively had over a course of 30 plus years in leadership and lighting each other's torch. And that's what we're going to do today because we're going to kind of switch it up a little bit and do you want to say? You want me to say? You want to say?
I mean, it don't matter. But let's just say we're trying something different. We are trying something different today, and we hope that you guys engage with us. You share your perspectives, you share your thoughts. For the last few weeks, we've piloted a new approach to our Fireside Chat series and did a 3-part series that was titled Discover How to Channel Your Inner Superhero into Powerful Leadership. And today we are taking your questions and weaving it into the conversation. So this is a Q&A. This isn't something we've scripted or mapped out. We really just want to hear from you. If there are questions around the topics that we've shared in this series, put them in the chat and let us know and we'll speak to it. But this is something we're trying new. Hey, that's part of leadership, right? Getting
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable at times, trying something different.
Mm-hmm.
In some industries, they call that being agile, where you have to adjust and change with the times. So that's what we're doing. This is a live Q&A. But as we wait for your questions to come in, let's do a little recap, Candice. So the very first series we did was around discovering your leadership DNA. So, with that one, we talked about, kind of what makes up your leadership DNA. We talked about different assessment tools. We talked about how you can align your leadership style with your career goals and things of that nature. Anything you want to highlight from that segment?
From there, I really want to highlight what we talked about when it comes to your DNA is your embracing your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
and using that as you are creating your own leadership style. I know that there are several different leadership styles that they have out there. However, your leadership style is your experience, your background, especially when it comes
Mm-hmm.
culturally, to
Right.
embrace that and to bring that forth, because that truly is a part of your DNA.
Absolutely. Some of the things that we shared with the audience that day was, some tactical things you can actually do to uncover your leadership DNA. What does that look like? So we talked about different assessments, like you mentioned, DISC, Myers Briggs. Some organizations use 360 feedback. If you're just curious, like, well, how do I show up? You can do this on your own by way of Strengths Finders. You can also do a free assessment called a high five test. Just Google it,
Mhm.
and it will give you a top 5 of your strengths, things that you're good at, and you can pull these things into one-on-one conversations with your leader, or if you're interviewing for a job and you get a question around, what is my leadership style, or how do you show up as a leader in different roles. You can tap into these things that come up in by way of these assessments. Something else we talked about in that segment was just creating a development plan also for yourself. If you're trying to get on that leadership path and acquire those leadership skills, what does that look like for you? How can you weave that into your development plan? And then, if you are a leader, show that, role model those leadership skills, because someone else is always watching, right? What is it that truly makes you a leader? What are those core values that you possess? What have you seen in someone else that has role modeled a leadership that really resonates with you, and how can you continue to highlight that in your role and champion that with other people? So we definitely wanted to um, hit on that topic with this series. So thinking about it, a lot of times when I've talked to people, and the question that I tend to get around this is, I don't even know where to begin. Like, what does it mean to have this leadership style? And if I'm missing something, how do I get it? I just rattled off on some things, but I met with someone today actually that I'm coaching, and I challenged them to think about things that they were already successful at. And then I asked the question, what made it successful? What was it about you that made that experience successful and something that you highlight as being successful in a leadership role?
Mhm.
And what's funny about that, it was easier for this person to capture what wasn't right, or what they felt like they were missing versus what they were good at.
Mhm.
And so, if that is something you're challenged with in trying to identify, well, how have I actually shown up as a leader? What does that look like for me? Simply think about something you've been successful at, and think about what was it about you that made it successful? How did you show up as a leader in that space? So, thinking along those lines, Candice, is there something that comes to mind for you, or a question that you've gotten from folks before around leadership styles?
Um, I would say not necessarily leadership styles, but one of the common ones that has continuously kind of come up is, hey, you need to think like this. You need
Mm.
to be a strategic thinker. And it was like, well, what is that? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, and figuring out exactly what that is. I like to always, my advice with that is, you don't know. When you're stepping into, especially when you step into leadership for the very first time, you don't even know what that looks like. Even though people constantly are drilling that in, think strategically, think strategically. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, let me do that. But if you can relate that to something similar to your approach, but something that you do currently right now,
Mm-hmm.
and plan that out. So let's just say you have a child and it's their birthday and you're planning for their birthday. There's a little bit of some strategy behind that. You just
It
have like the simple
really is.
details, and it's like that's strategic thinking, but have them, like, to me, related to something that is something that and it speaks your language, that you can now understand. Okay, that's what strategic looks like. Now let's look and see exactly what that looks like in a leadership role. And
Yeah.
me right now, I'm huge on AI. Is take this, create this chat prompt, put it in there and say, hey, I'm creating, I'm doing my kid's very first birthday. Help me strategically think how to do it from here to here. Then take it and say, using the previous chat, would it convert that and correlate to that to a day in leadership? So now, yes, you have like real life people where we can sit here and tell you, but you also too are taking the initiative yourself to do it.
Yeah. So where I would pull on that a little bit more, um, in the spirit of Chat GPT and AI technology, right? You're in the seat as a leader and you're getting that pushback to your point, right? It's like, I need you
Mhm.
to be less tactical and more strategic. That
Mhm.
is a common question that a lot of people struggle with, right?
Yes.
So there are a couple of things I would say. One, ask the question, what does strategic look like to you as the person telling you?
Mhm.
Because being strategic looks different depending
To
on who says
everybody.
it, right?
Mhm.
And then the second thing, in the spirit of AI, one, depending on your task or your project, you can tell Chat GPT to act as an operations manager in financial services. And this person is tasked with leading an initiative to increase service levels in a
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
Help define a strategic plan to increase those service levels.
Mhm.
I promise you, it's going to
It's
give
gonna
you
spit
a
out.
whole strategy, right, around how you can approach that, right? And so leveraging those tools is pivotal in your career as you continue to
Mhm.
elevate. But this topic leads us to part two of our series, right? Part two of our series was the power of strategic influence.
Mhm.
So, but before we go too deep in that, if you're listening in, if you're just joining in, this is intended to be a live Q&A where you can ask questions, put questions in the chat, put questions out there for us to answer around our most latest, recent, first time 3-part series around this topic. So let's keep going. The power of strategic influence. So when we touched on that, we talked about, how strategic influence actually shows up for you as a leader. We touched on, now that you understand your leadership DNA, those core values, those traits, those skills, those things that come up for you, how can you be more influential? How can you be more strategic now knowing the skills you possess? And then it was, okay, now how do you showcase this for your team? How do you demonstrate being strategic and influence others in the journey? So, sorry, I had to mute there. Allergies going on out here in the on the West Coast. But Candice, so let's talk about it. With strategic influence, you want to be able to drive results, right? If you're either in a leadership role or aspiring to be a leader, you understand who you are. Now you're tasked with being strategic. Part of being strategic is being able to influence others. But how do you actually do that? Right? So some of the things that we touched on was, active listening, building trust. We talked about being an effective communicator. That's a term that's often thrown out there, but what does it truly mean?
Mhm.
Um, we talked about empowering your team and developing your team, because if you're truly effective at influencing others, they can function in your absence. That's the sign of a truly effective leader. So, thinking about that topic, right? I can recall being in a leadership role and often being tasked with how do you influence others? You're
Mm-hmm.
in a project, you have identified your key stakeholders. Your key stakeholders aren't quite bought into the initiative that you're putting for, right? How are you going to influence them to come along on the journey? There are two questions I always ask myself when I'm faced with this in order to effectively influence. One is, what are we solving for? Because that's what I lead with. I make sure we're very clear on what we're solving for. The second question that I often pose to myself in order to prepare is the with them. What's in it for me? Right? Everyone wants to know what's in it for them. If they're going to be on this journey with you, they just want to know, okay, so if I buy into this, how is it going to help me? How is it going to help my team? What do I get out of this? How, if I'm investing my time and my money and my energy into this with you, what do I get out of it? So, thinking about strategic influence, does a question or thought, have you received any questions on this topic, Candice?
With this one particularly, not so much
Mhm.
regarding it about being like a strategic influence. Um, but to answer it, I think everything that you were sitting there saying, like the WIFM, I always forget about that one. Um, there's another one that I can't think of the top of my head when it comes when it comes to that. It'll come to me. I think it's something that we had created. We like to create our own acronyms too. uh,
That we do. It's a
with
lot. Every company has them too.
with it. Um, but I guess the question that I really have is, yes, when it comes to strategic influence, like we gave them steps and everything like that. However, what would you say when it comes to someone in that leadership role and they're being told to be this strategic influencer, but they don't have, their leader just continues to tell them to do that, but they're not showing them how to do it outside of like what we've done. How do you think for that person? Because
Mhm.
sometimes, as if you report to someone, oftentimes you feel as if I can't go and question them, that I can't
Mhm.
go and not really question them, but to ask them without feeling like, oh, I'm gonna be looked a certain way, or oh, I'm going to maybe not be asked to do something. That fear tries to stick in. What would
Yeah.
you what would you say to someone?
There are a couple different ways I would approach that question. One is, this is where the power of networking and mentorship comes into play. If you're being tasked with something like this, you need to have someone that you can lean on to pose those questions to, to
Mhm.
really talk it through. Sometimes I might reach out to a good friend, and say, hey, talk this through with me. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm being tasked with. What are your thoughts? Just someone to have that sounding board, right?
Mhm.
And then from a mentorship lens, those are the kind of topics you can bring into that conversation with a mentor. I'm being told that I need to be more influential in this role. I don't have a clue, and I don't even see my boss doing that, but they're pushing it on me.
Mhm.
So the other piece of that is, sometimes you focus so much on the situation and the narrative and you lose sight. Take a step back and just ask yourself, okay, if I'm thinking about who's been influential in my life, how has that shown up for me?
Yeah.
And then now, okay, what can I do? And why is it not coming through for this person? Maybe it is my own energy that's causing me not to show up confident. Maybe around this person who is my leader, I get angst. So it's causing me not to come through as influential in meetings. Maybe
Yeah.
I shut down in certain environments because I'm not comfortable or I'm not as confident. And so you have to start asking yourself these questions to get awareness around, are there pockets of opportunity where I'm not showing up the way that I want to? And what's behind that?
Yeah.
So some of that is a little bit of self-assessment. The other piece is, gaining some awareness about how you show up in different situations. And then the last piece is have your good solid network where you can go and bounce these ideas off of, or have a strong mentor that you can reach out to.
Yeah, because I think, when we think about influence, we always want to see it in a positive light, for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that influence can impact us negatively. And I think every single thing that you just mentioned is true as far as what you need to do whenever whenever you're in that situation and it's occurring, because
Yeah.
it can happen both ways and
Mm-hmm.
it'll trickle down. Like if the influence is negative, and then now you are in that space, guess who's is going to be next that is trickling down to? And it's just a
So say
snowball.
more on that one. When you say influence is negative, let's talk more a little bit about that. What does that look like?
So influence in a negative way. Let's just say that you're getting told exactly what to do, but you're not getting any guidance on how to do it. And it's more so of, well, go figure it out. Hey, this is why you're in this role. This is why I hired you. I for sure, one of the things for myself personally, I remember getting put into this position that I did actually apply for in a leadership role. However, I was always getting told, oh, you just need some polishing.
Mm.
And the tactic behind doing that was, oh, I'm going to micromanage you. Send me everything. So now I'm having to send something to them, but you're not showing me how to do it. So here it is. I came into this position confident that, hey, I'm moving into a new role, especially as a leadership role. However, I have a leader who's not necessarily a leader. They are more so, I like to say, overseers, like the ones that are in the executive level.
Mm.
I don't,
Mm.
that's the title that I give them is, you guys are
Mm.
overseers. Because you're not,
Mm.
most of the time you're not lead, you're not in the weeds and you've probably been so far gone from being down at that level to
Yeah.
know how to lead in that aspect. So the way that you feel like you're leading, your adaptability is off. You're adapting at a higher level when you need to bring it down to another level. So the negative influence that I'm talking about is when it comes to getting into a new role, trying to do your best, but this individual is basically leading you and coaching you the way that they were coached, but it's causing a negative impact on the new leader.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear there is um there's trust issues, right? So
Mhm.
now you don't trust this person to truly lead you and be a positive influence for you in this leadership role.
Is it trust issues on both ends?
Could be. It could be, right? But what I would say is where are you going to spend your energy? Right? It's something that I had to learn in my leadership journey, right?
Mhm.
Is think about it. If you spend all that energy into why do they keep doing it? Why do they keep doing it? It's going to pull you down, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to put less energy on why they keep doing it and maybe change up the approach, right? It's not to say it's going to work every time,
Mhm.
but challenge by asking more questions. Get clarity. If you're not polished enough. Okay, tell me more about that. What does
Mm-hmm.
polished look like in your eyes?
Okay.
And where is there the opportunity for me to do that differently in my role? Or how have
So
I
what
shown
if
up not polished?
what if they've done that?
What if they've asked the questions? In some cases, you got to think about where you're at. Is it where you really need to be? Is that where you can
Yeah.
flourish and grow? Right? So you have to make some decisions. And, you know, is this the right place for me?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to start looking for something different so that I can flourish as a
Yeah.
leader? You got to pick and choose your battles. And then always ask yourself, is there a lesson in this experience that I can get and take to the next role? Because you don't
Yeah.
want to make it feel like it's hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, right? Where you jumping from role to role to role because you're
Mm-hmm.
not getting what you need. Find a lesson, try. If it's not working, I'm sure there's some sort of chain of command, possibly, that you can work from. If there's
Mm-hmm.
not, you got to take matters into your own hand. What's next for you?
Yeah.
You
And I
know?
think that's, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. Keep going.
No, and I think that's where it's at is I think sometimes when we were talking about the whole strategic influence, we kind of tend to talk we talked more so on the positive side of it. However, there is that negative side of it where you do have to come to terms, and sometimes women of color, we will be in there saying that we're strong, we're going to stick this
Mm-hmm.
out. And it's like, no, we can't necessarily do that. You have to be able to weigh your options and to see, okay, exactly what you said, because that's the exact step that I took, where I kept asking those questions and I kept asking it and I kept getting the same generic answer of polishing,
Mm-hmm.
polishing, polishing. And it's like, well, I'm aiming at a moving target. The target keeps moving because you're not
Yeah.
being very definitive in what you're telling me, and it's confusing, it's not providing me clarity, so I'm not able to get better. And so it came to that point where I had to make that decision. Okay, bet what I'm going to do is take my experience that I have. At the time, I was like, I hadn't
Mhm.
finished my degree. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to finish my degree. Now I have my degree because that's what I thought that I necessarily needed in order
Yeah.
to put myself out there and to get a salary that I desired. And I was out. I said, I'm just going to actively go and look for something where I'm going to get that clarity. I'm going to feel good about this move. But it's exactly what you said, is that also being a strategic influencer over your team, the first person you got to be strategic sometimes is over yourself. And
Absolutely.
that's the biggest lesson that you can actually take, that you can apply when it comes to your team.
Mm-hmm. But at the same token, I'd say just challenge yourself sometimes. Really
Yeah.
think about it. Like, how am I showing up? And in some cases, that person may have their own unconscious biases, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's coming through. Or they feel like feedback is always trying to find something negative, and they don't have anything else to say, right?
Yeah.
But you shouldn't allow people to move your needle that's going to cause you to show up in a way that you don't want to. You know what I mean? So you have to find the right steps for yourself. And even with that, it takes us to the last part of the series we had. And I know we're getting close on time, but with the last part of the series, we talked about creating a leadership legacy. And
Mhm.
when you think about that person who is not effective in building a strong team or building strong leaders behind them, what kind of legacy are they leaving? Right? Is that a legacy that one is going to follow and really thrive under? Or, there's the leader who's been impactful. There's the leader who has shown integrity. There's the leader who has gained some awareness around their unconscious biases and have made some changes.
Mhm.
Because just because that's how you once were doesn't mean that's how you'll forever be. and there's opportunity to make some changes on your journey. So just because you start out one way, the whole part of a leadership journey is learning, growing, and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a telltale sign of truly building a legacy. So, you know, questions out there, again, this is a live Q&A. If you do have questions, or you're sitting back like, gosh, this is good, but I don't want to type my question in, you know what, hit us up on the side. If there are topics that come to mind for you, or things that you want to know more about, how can I truly show up as an effective leader, whether by title or whether just by my role, that's what we're here for. We're here to have those
Mm-hmm.
kind of conversations, and showing up as a true leader in this space, and really being able to help light your torch and each other's torch to build stronger and better leaders. So again, that last one was on leadership legacy. In the series, I encourage you guys to go back and look at it. But we talked about people who were, who left that mark on us, right? That were
Mm-hmm.
very influential, and what led to their legacy. So, Candice, any thoughts on the topic you want to hit on, or questions that you may have gotten around this topic?
What I want to hit on that is, I think it was something you just said about titles. Like your legacy isn't in your title, the legacy is in you, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I literally was listening to a podcast this morning, and I posted it on another social media platform, but it asked, like, how will I impact today? And like, if you continue to ask yourself that every single day, especially being in a leadership role, like, ask yourself that question every single morning that you get: how am I going to impact today? How am I going to impact today? Because once you start
Mm-hmm.
asking that, you will begin to shift your mindset and to understand that, really, I don't want to just compass say great leaders, but really truly great leaders are the ones that are selfless. They're the ones that understand that I'm here to serve. That whole
Mm-hmm.
service, what is it, servantship leadership style,
Servant
that
leader.
just see
Mm-hmm.
servant leader that evolves over the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
that's really what it is. That to me is what one of the main things when it comes to being in leadership role and to leaving a true legacy is, how are you serving those individuals?
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, you mentioned being selfless, right? So you went opposite on me with influence. So I'm gonna go opposite on this one. Being a strong leader, sometimes you do have to be selfish as well, right?
True.
Because to show up for your team, to show up for others, you got to show up for yourself. If you're not in a good space mentally, physically, you're not getting that balance that you need, um, to really be effective in the workplace and be effective at home.
Mm-hmm.
There are downstream effects to that. And so, in some cases, you do have to learn to be selfish and really dive into, hey, you know what? Right now, I need to take a step back,
Yeah.
or set boundaries around your time. Maybe in the morning, you need to dedicate that time to just getting set up for your day, identifying your top three, what you're going to work on, where you're going to spend your energy. Maybe it's, you know what, right now, I need to focus on my team, not this project. Or 4 o'clock, I got to shut this off because I got to go show up for my family. Or,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm trying to develop myself. So at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever it is, I need to shut this off so that I can continue to develop and grow as a leader and become better for the team. And so there's there's the need to really have that
Oh,
discernment. There's that need to have conscious awareness around when to be selfish and when to be selfless.
selfless,
You
100%.
know, I see Hanaro there. One, I want to say, Hanaro, congratulations. I saw your promotion. And we celebrate those promotions. Good, 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 and new
Yes.
opportunities. I appreciate your comment there. Um, I've always loved pouring into you. We got along really well. And you you have a comment there that you play my Mary J. Blige song. Yes, so if you don't know, I am a huge Mary J. Blige fan. I even dress like Mary J. Blige for Halloween. But yes, that I get hype in the morning. I choose my get hype song to carry me through the day, and oftentimes it is a Mary J. Blige song. But Hanaro also says in the chat that servant leadership pays dividends, and that's true because you start to see the fruits of your labor in those that you pour into and the service that you
Yeah.
put into the work that you're doing. So, Candice, any other thoughts before we get ready to wrap this up?
No, like Cynthia has been mentioning all throughout here, we are trying something new. So if you were a little shy today, don't worry about it. We got you in a few months. You get an opportunity to ask us again. Because
Mm-hmm.
one thing about it is that people that may not have wanted to show up today, you may feel comfortable in a few months, but it's something new that we definitely wanted to try out because we are definitely here to talk about certain topics and have a candid
Mm-hmm.
conversation as we are lighting not only each other's torch but your torch. But also too, we want to hear from you if there's something that sparks a question, even as we're going through this series, the next series that we're getting ready to start, and you have a question there that you just want to do. Hey, do it. Because we want to make sure that whatever it is that you may have a challenge in, that you may need some advice or some guidance from, or you may just simply need your torch lit. Let's just be real.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is the place to
Love
be,
it.
and we want to make sure that we do that.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. We are here for you. So, we always like to light each other's torch and light your torch before we close. And I'll start with, we titled this around your inner superhero, right? And I always say to my daughter, I feel like I got an S on my chest, right? I am the superhero. And so what I'll tell you is tap into that. Just sometimes go in and just, yes, I have this cape. I have this S on my chest and I'm wearing it well. Be proud of your accomplishments. Tap into what's really carried you through each challenge, each milestone, and own it. And let that be your legacy. And let that fuel you on your leadership journey. You've done well, you've excelled. Hold on to it and let that really ignite that S on your chest and continue being the superhero as you navigate through your leadership journey. What you got, Candice?
I like that. I was just thinking about the different, like what we're doing from generation to generation,
Mm-hmm.
and each generation has its own superpowers,
Yeah.
superhero powers to tap into. And so I want to encourage the ones that, we still have some that baby boomers, we still have some boomers, tap into
Mm-hmm.
that superpower of your wisdom because we need it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm telling you, hey, I'm millennial.
Mm-hmm.
We need it
I almost said
because there's so
amen.
much. We need
Yes.
it because you all, that wisdom lights our torch for us to be able to begin to step into being the guiding, being the mentors, being the coaches, being the leaders that you guys once were. Doesn't mean that we're not counting you out. It's just the transition of the lighting of the torch. Light
Mhm.
our torch so we can begin to light these Gen Zers, because these Gen Zers, no offense if any of y'all are listening, but they're coming in, and I love their disruptiveness of the norms that has been created. However, there's a balance. There's things
Mhm.
that the previous generations that you can pass on to us as millennials, that we'll be able to pass on to them, that will last a lifetime. That's where your legacy actually,
Mhm.
continues to happen by you doing that, because it I just think of all the evolution over the last 2 weeks when it comes to, we seen it, the robots, and I'm just thinking, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, we about to have robots out here, really out
Mhm.
here, walking around with us, like dapping, hey, and it's
Yeah.
there's something about tradition that cannot be replaced by no type of AI.
Mhm.
And that only lives on if you pass it on to us. So that's just my encouragement, really lighting it up so you guys can light it down to us.
All right. I love it. I love it. All inspirational as we get ready to close this out. So, uh one, thank you everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Thank you for continuing to support our Lighting the Torch Fireside Chat series. We strongly appreciate you. We encourage you to follow us at Tip Energy Coach, at No Gap Consulting. And, we want to continue fueling your career journeys, your leadership journeys. So look out. We will be announcing our new series pretty soon. Stay tuned and join us next time. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Bye.